Okay, so it's been roughly 2 weeks worth of driving today for Select One. And the good news is I actually seen a paycheck. I'm going to go over today some of that stuff and crunch some numbers with you guys and give you a concept of what I actually made here and how it broke down. All right, so I've been keeping track of stuff, of course, over the past couple of weeks. Pretty good with keeping up with things. And I got some numbers for you guys. That way you can hear some real world scenario stuff. No fake things or anything like that. All right, so on July 15th was my first load. Right, first load grossed $1,700. The load picked up over in Sandwich, Illinois, delivered to Johnson City, Tennessee for 715 miles total. That's 660 loaded, 55 empty. On that, remember now that's 72% to you, 28% to them. So their cut of that $1,700 was $476, which left me a net of $1,224 with one pickup and one stop. I had a lumper service that I had to pay for out of that, which is $164. However, the company negotiated with the broker. The broker did pay for the lumper. The average for this load was $2.37.7 per mile. All right, that's $2.37, $2.38 a mile on that one. That was my first load. My second load was September 17th. All right, it was going from Charlotte, North Carolina to Warner, New York. That one paid $2,400 gross. Their cut was $672, which left me $1,728. One pickup, one delivery. Total miles for it was 822 miles. It was 749 loaded and 73 empty. Paid $2.91.9 per mile, or might as well say $2.92 a mile. Those are the only two loads I was paid for on my first week. Now, on my first week, they took out all kinds of expenses, and I crunched numbers and crunched numbers and crunched numbers to figure it all out and how it works. As you can see, I have all kinds of little notes here and here. So my first week, my check I received was $1,050.41. But how did we come to that? How did we get to $1,050? First off, you need to know what kind of deductions they took out. All right, so naturally they took out fuel that week. My fuel cost for the week is going to be added into this, although I broke it down quite dramatically. But overall, here's the best I can do for you. Okay, so the fixed cost is the first thing everybody wants to know. What was the fixed cost? So the fixed cost is $975, although the first week they did not take out a truck payment. So we won't include that in the adding and subtracting on the first week. We have $125 escrows going into a $2,500 maintenance account. You have $50 going toward IFTA, $50 toward registration, $40 toward occupational insurance, $10 for drive-wise for the way station pre-pass, and that comes to a total of $275. I had $123.65 in tolls. I had a total of 1,537 miles loaded and empty miles total. All right. On my truck fuel, it looks to be that I spent in the neighborhood of $765. Reefer fuel was $160.09 and $33 for DEF. Now, whenever I first started, I started off on E. I ended the week. I had fuel left over. which we're going to see that as well. And then you had a total of $958.09 worth of fuel, including reefer, DEF, and truck fuel. However, they went on ahead and added for another trip that I was doing for this week, right? Because they're always a week behind. But anyway, so I fueled that Friday for another load, and they charged me for that up front, which was $326.90 plus the $45.72 for fuel for a reefer. So that gave me a total of $1,330.71. Well, if we break this down a little bit, I have my 12 cents per mile maintenance that we had to put in there. They came up with $172.20. My fuel, which was $958.09, which come up to be 62.3 cents per mile. My fixed cost, if I would have had the truck payment added in there, would have been 63.4 cents per mile at $9.75, giving me a total of $1.37.7 cents per mile at 1,537 miles, which was my break even. However, in actuality, the way it played out was like this. We had fuel cost at $1,330.71. My totals were $123.65. My fixed cost was $275. My maintenance escrow was $172.20. That totaled $1,901.56 in bills that I had to pay out. My net revenue for the week was $2,952. All right. Well, if we take the 1901.56 minus the $2,952, you come up with $1,050.41. That's how I ended up with pay. I know that's a lot of numbers to crunch. As you can see, I'm smoking. It drives me crazy, whenever I crunch numbers. But so that was that week. What does that mean? My first week looks horrible on paper. It really does. But I crunched more numbers because I now had a base to come off of. With that said, okay, if we look at the fixed cost, it's $975 a week. At 200 miles, at 250 miles, that's going to cost you, for fixed cost alone, about $3.90 a mile, and it drops dramatically as we go. For 500 miles for the week, it brings the average down to $1.95 at 1,000. It's $1.02.5 per mile. At 1,500 miles for the week, it's 65 cents a mile. At 2,000 miles in a week, it's 48.75 cents per mile. At 2,500 miles for that week, it was 39 cents a mile. At 3,000 miles a week, it brings it down to 32.5 cents per mile. At 3,500, it brings it to 27.8 cents per mile. My maintenance cost was fixed, at 12 cents per mile on that. Averaging my fuel for that week looks to be horrible because they added in the extra part to it. So it come up at 5 miles to the gallon on paper, which is roughly 49.5 cents per mile. However, like I said, that was for that week. That week's check looked okay, but it can get you real downhearted and disheartened whenever you sit there and look at it and go, man, I grossed almost $3,000 and didn't make about 1,000 of it. That's a third of it. Gets disheartened, or you get disheartened real quick. So for this week, I was running numbers this week. This week's been a better week for me. As far as things go, I made decent money. I ain't got rich at it by no means, but I made decent money. I'm going to give you a little breakdown on it if I can find my book, which I can't at the moment, but maybe I can come across it here in a second. But for now, we'll go across this. Okay, So for this week, my first load was paying $1,700, and I did not want to take it. I argued and argued and argued, and I ran into an issue with them about it. Not for this particular load, but the particular area I was in up there in Warner, New York. They had loads over there that I seen on the load board, and I wanted a few of them. They didn't work out, so I could have made really good money going over to Indiana, but I ended up going to Oakwood, Georgia. So with that said, I took a load going from Cuba, New York to Oakwood, Georgia, paying $1,700. Their cut was $476. My cut was $1,224. That's 875 loaded miles and 158 empty miles. That's 1,033 total miles. The load paid $1.64 a mile total. All right, that's including everything, their cut and all. You know, it's $1,700. That was a bad load. Weighed a lot. Really drank the fuel going down through there. Just wasn't very pretty at all. But anyway, I took the load down there. After I got down there, things started picking back up. So my next load was $1,500, and their cut was $420, and my net off of that was $1,080. Picked up in Birmingham, Alabama, went to Maxton, North Carolina, for a total of 684 miles. That's 488 loaded and 196 empty. That paid me $2.19 per mile. The next load I picked up paid $12.50. Their cut was $350. That left me $900. It picked up in Warsaw, North Carolina, and delivered to Jessup, Maryland. Total miles on that was 410. There was 327 loaded, 83 empty. It paid me $304 a mile. All right. The next load I had was the load I'm sitting on right now, and that's $1,700. Again, it's $476 to them. Left me $1,224. One pick, one stop, going from Jessup, Maryland to Hubbard, Indiana. Loaded miles was 733. Empty miles was 5. That's 738 miles. It paid me $2.30. Now, if we look at the numbers on this for this week, this week's numbers look okay. My gross revenue was $6,150 after their cut. It was $4,428. They made $1,722 off of me this week. All right. My operational cost was for my fixed truck and my maintenance around $1,318.80. Other expenses I incurred were some scales, tolls, trailer washout, and my truck reefer and DEF. That was $1,602.95. So if we take and break this down, my net revenue, like I said, was $4,428 minus my fixed cost and maintenance, which is $1,318.80. That left $3,109.20. All right, $3,109.20 minus all my other operating costs, which was $1,602.95. That left me $1,506.25. All right, now the miles I run for the week was 2,864 miles, or 65. When you break it down, that's in 50 some odd cent profit range. I think it's like 56. Let me look to make sure, but I believe it's 56 cents a mile or something to that effect. 52 cents a mile. 52 cent a mile profit. My average revenue per mile was $214 per mile. Somewhere in there. I'm trying to do the math here again, but yeah, so $2.14 a mile. Then we take their cut off of that. All right, at $2.14 a mile, you figure for easy math, 30 cents on a dollar, even though it's 28 cents on a dollar. But just if you want to do it in your head at 30 cents per mile, even at 28 cents per mile, you're looking at per dollar, not per mile, but per dollar per mile. And then you come up with 28, 28's 40, 40 and 16's 56. All right, that's 56 cents a mile off of that. So at 56 cents per mile off of that, you're looking at $1.60, $1.46, somewhere in there. $1.46 a mile, $1.56 a mile. All right, so my operational cost was around $1.02 a mile, give or take. Now, mind you, I still have a half a tank of fuel left over at the end of the week. My reefer is sitting at probably about a half a tank as well. So I prepaid for some fuel on that. But still, all week long, with my average being somewhere around $2.14 to $2.29 per mile on average, somewhere in there. It's about where the market's at as far as reefers go. I don't know what you guys would expect when you come out here. You may be having high hopes and high dreams of $5 a mile freight, or everybody and their brother paying big bucks. But by the time you break it down, you've got the $700 a week truck payment you're making. That's $2,800 a month on a 4-week month. 7, 7, 14, 14, 14 is 28. And it just adds up. The truck payment does, as far as that goes. With a fixed cost of $975 a week, that's almost $4,000. That's $3,900 or $4,000 for easy math a month. You got to pay out. That cuts into it. These are all cons. And you constantly fighting for freight. When I say fight for freight, they'll give you whatever's quickly available. Sometimes it's a real easy score. Sometimes it's, you have to keep telling them no, and you have to run the numbers. You really do. If you don't sit down and go, okay, this load pays $2 a mile, and they tell you, your loaded miles and empty miles, they won't tell you what it pays per mile. They just say the load pays $2,000. There's 900 loaded miles. There's 1,000 empty miles. And it pays $2,000. Do you want it or not? Well, you have to crunch numbers and go, okay, I know for easy math, 30, 60, 30 cents, 30 cents, 60 cents. That leaves $1.40. All right. So $1.44, right around in there per mile to me. Now, my operational cost varies greatly. It depends on how many miles you run. For example, on a 2,500 mile week, your operational cost is going to average somewhere around $1.10 or so per mile. Closer to $1 a mile the more you get toward 3,000 miles. But even at 2,500, it's $1.10 a mile. And if I take that load and it's paying 44 cents a mile, that means I'm making 34 cents a mile, somewhere in there. And these are all rounded numbers, but you just do it in your head real quick. You go, okay, that's $1.40, $1.40 minus 10 is 30 cents a mile. I can't do it. I can't work for 30 cents a mile. Even though the load originally is paying $2 a mile, I'm only going to clear 30 cents a mile, because after you take out their cost, your operational cost, that comes up to about $1.75 a mile, roughly $1.70, somewhere in there. So true operational cost here is about $1.70, $1.75 a mile, and the freight rates right now are hitting about, on average, like I said, about between 230, 215, somewhere in there. So at $1.75, if it's paying $2.25 a mile, that means I made 50 cents a mile. And you got to do all this in your head while you're booking your freight, which is fine. Which you're not booking freight, you're telling your dispatcher you'll either take it or no. You can ask for more money. You'd be like, no, I'll take that load for this amount of money. And they will make an offer, and sometimes it works. Like the one run I had for $1,250 going to Jessup, Maryland. They started off at 11. I said, no, I can't do it for that. I can do it for $1,250. And they offered it to me, and I took it. They said, we'll take you $1,250. So I jumped on it, which that paid $3.04 a mile for that run. So that made up for some of the other things. You can negotiate every load on here, really and truly. Cons. You can't book your own freight. You cannot. All right. I was told you could, but I was informed, no, you cannot. I don't know who told you that, but you cannot book your own freight. What you can do is you can get on the load boards, find the loads, send them over to the company, and say, I want this. That's what they say they want you to do. If you want to look at load boards, which I have access to load boards, I go on there and look. Like right now, there's a load sitting there that's paying $3,500 right now, and it's going from up here in Indiana back down there to Alabama, bus 2 pickups, 4 stops, and it empties out in 3 days. That's a really good load to me. It's not great money, but it ain't nothing to be ashamed about by no means. In 3 days' time, $3,500, that's over $1,000 a day revenue. That's not bad. Don't get me wrong, it's not superstar money, but it's not bad. But just understand that you're not going to get rich here by no means. If you're willing to work, put in the time, crunch the numbers, and do the math, you can make money here, but not get rich money. Could I get a job as a local driver or even as a company driver somewhere and make the same money? Absolutely. Absolutely I could. But, and here's the big but for me, I don't want to have to say yes sir and go wherever they tell me to. If I get a load going to New York, somewhere that I don't want to go, I just tell them no, and there ain't nothing they can do about it. There again, if I was a company guy, I'd have to say yes sir and take off. I could argue and dispute or fuss or whatever, but at the end of the day, that's a company truck, a company vehicle, and you got no skin in the game, so you're at their whim. Here at Select One, it's a little different. Just because I told them no, they didn't get mad and punish me. They actually worked harder to find me more of what I wanted. And that was a big pro. They dug in deeper. Instead of getting mad at me, and going, well, I'm sorry, we're just going to let you sit there until you figure out what you want to do. They kept offering more freight. Throughout the day, there was phone calls. We found this. We got that. We found this. We found that. Until they made me satisfied with what I got. Now, mind you, I did find compromise each day to where I met them somewhere along the way. There has not been one day where I sit. They've kept me moving every day. Every day. I can't say I've said any at all. They keep you moving. Now, mind you, you can't just jump in here and grab everything and go. You have to watch your numbers. I mean, you are a business. And if you don't watch your numbers and you don't sit down and crunch these numbers, then you're going to find yourself not making your greatest potential, or not just, you may even flounder around a little bit, not make any money. You know, if you're not keeping up with your stuff. My truck, here's an example of my truck. I've noticed there's not really a huge difference between running 70 mile an hour and 65 mile an hour. Now, once I go down to 62, it's a huge difference. But those between 65 and 70, there's no difference at all. Hardly, I mean, it's very, very little. It's not worth the effort to slow down that much. However, at 62, it does pay good dividends, you know, on the fuel economy side of things. I'm in the 2017 Kenworth. That's a T680. More good news. I had a breakdown this week as well. The truck wouldn't start, the key wouldn't turn, blah, blah, blah. The battery was reading at 40%. The auto start feature tried to come on at 40% and it refused to, said the circuit was overheated or whatever. I called the company up, Select One tells me, he says, don't worry about it, we're sending somebody out. They eventually got somebody out, which, you know, the hold time and stuff like that was about 30 minutes total time for them to get me access to somebody, but I was in a rest area already, so I guess that could be a con to some folks, but 30 minutes is not bad. They had an individual come out to me, or not individual, but a store, Love's, down off exit 4 in South Carolina. They come up to me, jumped me off, got me back down there, diagnosed me with bad battery. So instead of replacing one battery, they replaced all the batteries. And the company supposedly paid for this. I say supposedly because I have yet to see the check for this week. It will be in next Friday. But yeah, they told me they would cover it. So I'm taking them for the word. They're going to pay for the repair costs and everything else. They told me I got 90 days, or not 90 days, but 30 days with the truck they cover. I don't know if that's true or not, but I can say my first little breakdown here with a battery issue, I didn't pull no money out of pocket. None. I did have to get a trailer wash out, and that come out of my pocket. But other than that, you know, like I said, and even then, they cut me a check over here through EFS that reimbursed me for it, but I don't know if they're going to charge me for the trailer washout, which I'm assuming they will. But yeah, I went on ahead and paid for it out of pocket, called them up just in case, and said, hey, will you send me a check? And they did. So I've got it sitting here. Things I like about the company so far, they're willing to do more than most companies would. Most companies would shut you down. That is a real pro for me. Most companies will shut you down whenever you're trying to find the best bang for the buck, right? Whenever they offer you something and you turn it down, most companies will shut you down and tell you can just sit there and wait. Me, that's a big pro, that they were willing to constantly keep on the phone, constantly take care of me and my wants and needs on that. That is a real big plus. The con, I cannot book my own freight. The bad part about it is they don't want you calling the broker and setting up to run the load, blah, 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 and having them send over a rate confirmation sheet. They want you to allow them to do that. That's a con for me. It's a big con. I want to know who I'm dealing with and everything else prior to me accepting the load if I get my way. If the money's right, I don't care. That's the truth. If the money's right, I don't care. But, you know, again, I would prefer to know where I'm going, what I'm doing. Uh, Dislikes about the company. One, I don't know. I really don't. I can say from after being out of orientation, there's really not much to complain about. Really, there's not. The freight is what it is. They offer you what they can. They try and do the best they can. They've got guys that work the load boards. Your dispatchers will call you and tell you what they've got out there and what they're trying to negotiate for. They're your go-between. Uh, Really, it's not a bad deal. Really, it's not as far as the company and the way they operate goes. Now, if we're going to talk orientation, orientation was a whole different ballgame. Orientation here is a joke. It really is. It's a joke. Uh, I hate to be that way about it, but it's a joke. If you can make it through the orientation process with an open heart and an open mind, then after you get out here, do like I'm doing, you'll be fine. Orientation knows basically you go in, you sit there and listen to them, and they'll tell stories of their life, and you go back to the motel. You don't really learn much about the company. You don't learn much about the way the process works. Uh, the you're just kind of left out in the cold on that. Uh, Really, it's very, very vague at best for an orientation. The good news is that they will take the time to sit down with you and go over your electronic logs and the way you're sending your paperwork and stuff like that on the app. The lady here, she goes through it and she's very nice, very friendly, and she will sit down and talk you through each little thing, which is not hard to do. The app's really simple. The e-logs are a little different. The safety director here, she is, and I don't mean to be mean or out of the way or nothing like that, so don't take it any other way than me just being a country boy saying she's a sweetheart, right? So I ain't trying to be out of the way, but she is. She's real nice, real friendly. She understands. She's been around trucking for a long time. Her daddy's a truck driver. And she just has a good concept of how things work. So I'll give her a plus on that. The e-logs are strict. Obviously, by themselves alone, the government regulates this way too much, but that has nothing to do with the company. But other than that, I have yet to meet the owners, which I don't care if I meet them or not, as long as the money